Hey all, in this video I'm going to be talking about the rights of people with criminal records when applying for work in California. I'm also going to talk about how you can request a copy of your criminal record to review it and what services are available for having past convictions removed from your record. Before 2018, it was common for job applications in California to include a box to check if you had been convicted of a crime in the past. And this is still common in many other states. This made it extremely difficult for people with criminal histories to get hired because an employer could just see that checked box and toss out the application. This also greatly reinforced racial inequality, especially for African Americans. In 2017, African Americans made up about 5.7% of the state's population, but 28.4% of the state's prisoners. And so because of systemic racism, you have an extreme racial disparity in who gets locked up. And then you have this racial inequality being even further entrenched by making it nearly impossible for people to find employment after incarceration. Out of this injustice grew the movement to ban the box, to get rid of the box on job applications asking about criminal histories. And in California, we did it. In 2018, a law called the Fair Chance Act went into effect. And this law banned the box and it implemented new regulations to make sure that people with criminal histories are judged based on their actual qualifications for a job. The Fair Chance Act covers almost all employers that have 5 or more employees. There are some exceptions, including certain jobs at healthcare facilities and at criminal justice agencies like police departments. But most employers in the state, including private companies and government agencies, are going to have to follow the rules that we're going to go over. Under the Fair Chance Act, an employer cannot ask you about a past conviction on a job application or during a job interview before they make you a job offer. After they make you a job offer, they can ask you about your criminal history and they can run a background check, but they have to follow a very strict process. Once they run a background check and learn about your criminal history, they have to make an individualized assessment. This means that they gotta consider you as an individual person, and they have to consider things like the seriousness of your criminal history, how much time has passed, and how much your criminal history is actually relevant to the job that you're applying for. There are also certain things that an employer can never ask you about or consider when deciding whether to hire you. This includes arrests that didn't result in a criminal conviction unless your trial is still pending. This also includes participation in diversion programs, records from the juvenile justice system, and criminal convictions that have been sealed, dismissed, expunged, or statutorily eradicated, meaning they've been erased by a new law. If after reviewing your criminal history, the employer decides to take back the job offer, they must do so in writing. They must explain which criminal conviction disqualified you, and they must give you a copy of any report or background check that they used to make their decision. You then get 5 days to respond to the employer's decision. In your response, you can point out any mistakes in the reports that the employer relied on to make their decision. You can also submit evidence of rehabilitation. This could include your participation in any education or rehab programs. It could include proof of community service. It could include supportive letters from parole or probation officers, medical professionals, counselors, instructors, employers. It could also include a personal statement describing any efforts that you've made to improve your life. The employer must then consider your response. If they still want to take back the job offer, it must be because a past conviction is directly related to the specific duties of the job that you're applying for. For example, maybe you were convicted in the past of dealing pharmaceutical drugs. This would have a direct relationship to applying for a job at a pharmacy, but it wouldn't have a direct relationship to applying for a job at a landscaping company. The employer must give you their denial in writing, and they must include information about how to file a discrimination complaint with the DFEH, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. This is the state agency that enforces anti-discrimination laws, and you're allowed to file a complaint if you believe that the employer violated your rights. You don't need a lawyer to file a complaint, and it's free to do so. As you're applying for jobs, be sure to document everything. Keep copies of any applications, background checks, or communications you have with employers, and anything else that you think might be important. Also, keep a journal of any conversations you had in person or on the phone, including who you talked to, when, what you talked about. Having a record like this will be really important and will help you a lot if you end up challenging an employer's decision down the line. If you're applying for jobs, one way that you can prepare is by getting a copy of your full criminal record. That way you can see if there are any mistakes on it that you can correct, and it'll also allow you to prepare for any questions an employer might have about your history. To request a copy of your criminal record, you can get it through the California Department of Justice, and I'll include a link in the description with instructions for how to do so. You got to get fingerprinted, and there's a $25 fee, but you can apply to get the fee waived if it's a problem. The record that you'll receive is called your Summary Criminal History, also called a rap sheet. It'll include the details of any arrests, convictions, and diversion programs that you've participated in. Now, your full summary criminal history is different and much more detailed than what your employer is going to see when they run a background check. And that's because employers can only see publicly available information when they run a background check. Normally, your employer cannot require you to hand over your full summary criminal history. If they're legally entitled to the information, they got to get it from the government, not from you. When you receive your summary criminal history, look it over and see if anything is incorrect or incomplete. The DOJ will include a form for you to fill out and mail back if there is something that should be corrected. Finally, I want to encourage you to reach out to a Clean Slate legal clinic near you. Clean Slate clinics provide free legal help with having past convictions sealed, dismissed, or expunged, so that way they no longer appear on your criminal record. This will really help you out when it comes to applying for jobs or for housing. I'm going to include a link in the description to a list of different organizations in California that provide Clean Slate services, and maybe one of these groups will be able to help you out with cleaning up your criminal record. All right, well, I wish you all the best. Good luck to you.